how much billable hours will you actually be able to retain. This is all dashboard oriented, that once you're setting up a dashboard, you can monitor, track, and run your practice as a business. And this is a business dashboard. So you also mentioned about the cost of a staff, which is in the firms, is the highest expense of the firm is a staff. So imagine you're going a solo practitioner who wants to add 5 people in their firm. These 5 people with a LegalSoft solution cost the firm less than $10,000 a month for 5 full-time dedicated staff. Now, in California, that costs one person in house, $10,000. So you get 5 times more value when you're doing this. But this is all part of managing your cost of operation for technology automations with virtual staffing and efficiency tracking of the dashboards to be able to manage your expenses.
Exactly. We're going to give maybe 30 seconds for everybody to hop into the room, but as everybody's filtering in, feel free to pop into the chat where you're joining us from. We're really appreciative of the time that you've given us for this webinar. What this piece is here, what we want to do is provide value to the audience, right? Just talking about the trends that we as 2 leaders in the legal space are seeing. We want to focus around, how to build a virtual law firm or remote first law firm. So we're going to speak to a little bit of the trends and what we're seeing and some of the solutions that exist out there, both from like a services perspective as well as a product perspective. So, I'd love to actually, Hamid, kind of pass the torch off to you. And I want to say thank you again for giving me your time, right? I know how busy of a guy you are, so I appreciate it very much. So feel free to take it away and give the audience a little bit of background on yourself.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here. So my name is Hamid Cohen. I'm the president and CEO of LegalSoft. My background is a lot of tech. I spent 20 years in Silicon Valley developing, in the high-tech industry. A lot of great companies I work with, Sun Microsystem, HP, Compaq, variety of different tech companies, a few, public offering of the companies that we were involved with. And then in the past 6-7 years, we came into the legal industry. I have an engineering degree plus MBA. I also have a law firm. I'm a founder of a law firm in the past 4 or 5 years. And been around helping the law firm scale. And we had a lot of great success scaling law firms from solo practitioners to law firm size of 200-300, staff law firms. And it's been very successful, very challenging, and a lot of fun doing it. That's about my background. I'm going to get into some of the LegalSoft. So next slide, please.
Yeah, of course. So I'll introduce myself as well. So again, I want to say thank you to Hamid. I want to say thank you to your team, to my team, to everybody in the audience. So I work at Clio. I'm based here in Toronto, Canada. I've got a pretty interesting background, maybe not quite as similar to Hamid, but I actually did my master's in molecular biology here in Canada. Then I moved all the way to the US to actually pursue a career in stand-up comedy and a job at UCLA. So my background is very different. Before I joined Clio, I was living in a different world. I was a different person. I was a scientist, funny enough, if you can believe that with that silly face, right? But there's a brain up here. So now I work on a very special team at Clio. We only work with consulting companies like LegalSoft. So it's about strengthening partnerships, providing thought leadership pieces, really being leaders in the legal space. And so again, I'm just very thankful to be here and speak to the audience and provide value to an ever-changing industry. That's very important, I think, for the function of our society. So I want to, Hamid, kind of pass it off to you just to talk to the kinds of services that you guys provide. I think you've done an incredible job of building a real brand here at LegalSoft. So, feel free to take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you. So one of the big service that we provide is a trained, dedicated virtual legal staff into the firms that makes it easy for the firms not to have the human resources challenge. When I started this process, every time I wanted to scale a law firm, their first complaint was that even if I get all of these cases, I don't have the people to work on them. So everybody was afraid of scaling because lack of local, trained, affordable resources to be able to handle the cases efficiently. So we started basically globally recruiting a staff that have some legal experience. Then we have extensive training for these folks, and we place and manage them within the law firms. And that's how we became the largest provider of these services, because we work with 1,000+ law firms in all levels, from solos to mediums to even some of the large law firms. We recruit globally from 5 different countries that we have local presence. So we have recruiters, trainers, screeners, coaches, everything on locations. And just last month alone, we had over 10,000 candidates applying for the jobs that we have posted in these countries. So imagine we go through 10,000 candidates that you don't have to. And we had to narrow down the 10,000 into 300 qualified candidates that we put through our training process. So it's a bit of a work, but it's very rewarding when you have all of this staff available from these countries. And they're bilingual most of the time, and that's always been attractive for the law practices in the US.
Absolutely, right, Hamid. And I would imagine as well that this helps with operations cost effectivity for a law firm, right? If you can have virtual staff living elsewhere in maybe less expensive markets, then that allows you to increase your margins as a business operator, right?
Absolutely. It's very scalable because it's a fixed cost. So these are full-time dedicated staff into the firms, and averages about $2,200-$2,300 full-time staff, including all the benefits. And the benefits we're providing to this virtual staff is sometimes more than the law firms provide to the local staff, because is paid holidays, paid vacations, medical insurance, high-speed internet, hardware equipments. Even we go as far as in these individual countries offering our virtual staff retirement accounts, because we need them to stay around for a long-term basis, so we don't have this high turnover. And for the firms, it's easy because there's no long-term commitment, there's no benefit providing. They can add 5 more staff, remove 5 staff, no employment issues, no benefit issues.
I gotta say, like it's quite like a visionary way of thinking, right? Like, I know you've worked at multiple companies in the past. LegalSoft is maybe like a relatively newer endeavor, right, in your career, but I think it's very forward thinking of you to have done this, right? Like nobody really expected COVID to hit for this kind of like environment to exist, right? So like this virtual staffing piece, right? Like virtual services has just become, I think, even more and more explosive and necessary as time has gone on, right?
Right. And a lot of people worry about the safety and security of the data. We have
Mhm.
taken a lot of measures around that. First of all, we have people who are just continuously monitoring this staff. The second thing, we capture everybody's screen every 15 minutes. We track every URL they go to and we can restrict it. We record all the calls and it's all available to the attorneys to listen to audit it and so forth. So we have a lot of security measures in place. And thank God we never had an issue with the breach of data and so forth. So it's a pretty solid, thought through system to be scalable. So some of the positions that we offer through this process, I don't know what the next slide is on this, but if you could move to the next slide, please.
So for the next one, it'll actually be showing more stuff about Clio in particular.
Oh, I see. Okay, so great. So what it is that anything from a dedicated intake staff that most law firms lack, because they can't afford to hire local staff and say, you're going to work here 12 hours a day, 6 hours, 6 days a week or 7 days a week. Our intake staff work any schedule, any calendar you have. So, and they're dedicated to retain clients for you. Bilingual intake staff is one of our more attractive positions. Then it goes into case management. If you're running a personal injury firm, employment firm, criminal litigation, these are trained case managers in those practice areas to be able to engage. They're trained on your Clio. If you're using a Clio system, we actually train them because of our partnership with Clio. We trained our staff to work in Clio before they join the firm. So they're trained on case management, paralegals, demand writings, all the way to remote attorneys. We recruit and train globally. Imagine you get a practicing attorney in Ecuador who's finished school, finished their bar, very good writing skill, and so forth, and you get this full-time attorney for less than $3,800 a month. And that's include all the benefit and percentages and the things that the firms offer to their attorneys. Obviously, they're not going to work as the attorney because they're not licensed in the US, but they are attorney respectfully in their country, which they can do all the discoveries, all the motions, even completing filings, deposition summaries. They can do all of that stuff that somebody associate in the US will do. So it's a full range of being able to grow a law practice from legal assistance all the way to litigation. And we have all of those folks available. We have gone even as far as having a trained um, accounting staff who understand trust account and
Yeah.
operating accounts, and they know the regulations about it, how you handle a trust account. Again, the whole spectrum, make it scalable. So the attorneys can just basically sit there and practice law, and they don't have to worry about the rest of
Everything else,
the
right?
staffing, which
Yeah.
is a lot of waste of their time when they have to do 18 different things during a day that most of it is not lawyering, is
Exactly.
administrative work.
Yeah, exactly. Hamid, I think you nailed it, right? Like I've worked with so many attorneys in the past, and I think we as kind of like outsiders, or I think one of my lawyer friends call us civilians. Funny enough, it's like we don't really understand that their day is not just filling out paperwork, communicating with people, but don't forget, like a family lawyer is like a therapist sometimes to their clients, right? They're also
Right.
mothers, fathers, grandparents. They've got a million other things that are going on in their lives, and so just making their lives easier makes it so that they can help other people a lot easier, right? As well as scale their business and grow it and all of those fun things as well, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
there is a lot, and on the other side of it too, on the top of what we do on the virtual staffing, just to mention about LegalSoft, we manage hundreds of law firms' entire online presence.
Yeah.
So we even established that for them above and beyond the virtual staffing. We manage their Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and creating a lot of engaging content, a lot of videos, because now is the market for just videos
Yeah.
in every kind of a post. So there's a lot of other services. If folks, visit the LegalSoft site, they see the full range of services that we do that skills the law firm, not just from a staffing perspective, but also operations, marketing, online presence, client generations. All of those is also included. Basically, we're saying when you normally need to deal with like 8 different companies to be able to operate your practice, you only deal with one. So you have a staffing need that goes here. You need your online presence and social media management, same place. Client retention, client intake, technology, automations, mobile app, document collection is all within the LegalSoft. So you have your Clio and you have your LegalSoft, and this is the only two platforms you need to run
Yeah.
and scale a law firm. You don't need to have 18 contracts with 18 different people to do this.
I love that, Hamid, and I think that's kind of like the ethos that we as a company have kind of adhered to over the years, right? Like if I'm thinking about Clio itself, I'll give kind of the audience the wider background, right? So Clio's been around for about 16 years at this point, and I would say, hands down, we're the leader in cloud-based practice management software. I think one of the things that we've done so well, and Hamid, I think you alluded to, is everybody's operating on this piecemeal way, right? One little thing here, one little thing there. But especially when you're working in an environment that is so chaotic as an attorney, it's incredibly fruitful for you, both from like a business perspective, as well as from like a servicing clients perspective, like making real impact to have everything connected, right? So you hit the nail on the head, right? Having all of your services together into one not only makes you operate more efficiently as a law firm, but makes you able to, service people a lot more effectively, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why we have over 150,000 professionals, legal professionals leveraging Clio at this point in time. We're in over 90 countries, at this point. And so I think, when I think about Clio, the product itself, we've kind of created it in such a way where we think about the client-centered law firm. And I think, Hamid, you know that so well, right?
Right.
We operate on the principle that, you need to be servicing these people as best as possible, both from like a communication standpoint, from a case standpoint, from how you intake them all the way to billing, right? And so we've made products specifically around that, right? I think if I want to just highlight some ones initially, I think, to Clio grow. Now, Hamid's team is fantastic for this, right? So they actually do like that marketing piece, and that's what Clio Grow actually handles on our end. So we're the only company that has integrations with Google for local services ads. What Clio Grow actually does is it allows you to streamline your intake process as well as report on all of the marketing initiatives that you've done, right? Then we consider that process sort of everything pre-retainment, right? Then when you move those clients along this journey into actually retaining them, well, now you actually have to manage all of those cases. You have to manage all of the reminders, tasks, calendars, everything that's associated with that, right? Clio's even done a very good job of dipping into the document automation space. A couple of years back, we purchased Lawya, which is now rebranded as Clio Draft, but that actually is a tool which allows you to liaise for court forms with your courts, as well as build out document automation so that you can make these tasks that are typically very, very repetitive, kind of streamlined. So I think I work with a consulting company, funny enough, in Alberta. And so she was telling me about a law firm that she was working with, or she was using Clio Draft for them. And she cut down some of their document assembly from 3 hours. So imagine like you're an estate planning firm and it takes you 3 hours to assemble documents. She broke it down into 3 minutes for them, right? And especially as you're doing hundreds and hundreds of cases, that becomes particularly useful. And then we've even built out our own payment solution, right? So like one of the things that maybe more older thinking law firms do is they still send out like paper, right? To collect invoices. And so, I mean, you and I will talk about like the concepts of lockup and payment and all that stuff further, right? But like, don't forget, like, it's funny. I'm 32, right? Like I grew up inside of a computer. I'm almost embarrassed to say, like, I don't have a checkbook, right? I never have, like, my mind just works like I should be going online. That's how I find a lawyer. I find them on Google. And when I get my services paid for, somebody sends me a payment link and I put in my credit card information, it gets fired off, right? So, like, very much the way that you thought about servicing law firms,
Right.
we have as well, right? So I wanna pop into maybe actually even designing the ideal law firm. So maybe before we move into next slides, Hamid, do you have any comments there in particular?
No, basically the on that curve that you were showing, and on any one of those boxes and circles is how we place our virtual staff in one of those
Yeah,
places. So it's almost like a roadmap for our virtual staffing pad, where it says any part of your system that requires a human action or human follow-up is where we have a VA place, virtual staff for each one of those, because again, the attorneys should not be doing this. Attorneys need to be doing the lawyering. So you're giving them the system, the technology, the platform, and we give them the people to operate the practice with your technology and your platform. So they can basically manage the firm as a dashboard, not going through this whole, oh, I got to deal with this marketing thing and that intake that and then that billing thing. Is like, no, you should just run, and all you care about is essentially converting cases into settlements. And that's
exactly.
what you need to do, not the rest of this stuff.
Exactly, right? And I think that thought process becomes even more important as you maybe work in that, 1 to 100 attorney space, right? Like smaller firms have wear multiple hats,
Yes,
right? So you want to cut down on that completely, right? So I'm with you 100% of the way, Hamid. And so maybe like even moving into that idea of designing the ideal, remote law firm.
sure.
I'd love to even, I'm not certain if it's possible, but I'd love to maybe get some insights from people that are in the room. Like, feel free to just throw it into the chat. I'm not certain if I'm going to be able to see it, but we actually publish our legal trends report annually. So this is a survey of, I believe, 5,000 legal professionals. Some are our customers, some are just surveys, surveys of practicing attorneys and legal professionals in the industry. And so we did a really good job this year of actually speaking to like remote and hybrid work, right? So I think, Hamid, I'll let you comment on it a little bit because I'm very curious to get your take, right? We're seeing a lot of changes in the way that legal professionals are actually looking to work and operate their firms, right?
Yeah,
So if anybody's able to throw it in, let us know. Like, are you working in person? Are you exclusively in the office? Are you maybe doing a little bit of hybrid, right? Like I'm at home right now, right? So this is amazing. We wouldn't even be able to do hybrid, Hamid, if Zoom and all this stuff didn't exist.
sure.
And then there's some of those people that are just fully remote, right? So like
I-
I'm curious to see how that works from the audience if they're able to, give that to us.
Absolutely. We have when I started this, I never thought how far can it go. is like this virtual team because it was right, during COVID and so forth.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, it is law firms, not the huge law firms, but the basic, law firms can have two, three, four virtual staff from us, and this will be great. If each law firm has three or four virtual staff from us, we're doing really great. And then we ended up having law firms who have actually one of the law firms has 115 virtual staff from us, which is unbelievable because they only have like 60 in-house staff and 115 virtual staff from us,
Okay.
which if they had to even try half of that in-house, it was the resources wouldn't be available, they would
Exactly.
not be affordable, and they wouldn't grow and they wouldn't scale to the level they are today because so it's really mind-boggling sometimes how this thing actually grows.
Yeah, yeah, right. And I think you kind of, it's funny, I wanted to show this next slide because I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, one of the things that we've pulled actually from the legal trends report, so less than 30% of lawyers actually continue to work only from the office right now. So post-COVID, we're seeing this massive shift, right? While about 50% of non-lawyers do. So it's like this remote shift has hit legal in particular quite effectively. Right. So we're seeing this massive shift globally across all professions, but it seems to have, targeted legal in particular. Right. And so I'm curious to get, your experience, your take on that, with the sort of stats speak for themselves, but lawyers are moving in this direction anyways, right? It seems like.
Right, absolutely, because it is affordable and convenient to be able to staff up like this,
Yeah.
and especially that they're trained, monitored, and continuously trained, and they are now learning how to separate the law firm from practicing of law versus practicing a business of law. So there's coming a big distinction. Before, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, this wasn't the thing. It was like my practice. And I say, okay, so do you want to do? I happen to have two kids in law school, so I understand exactly what they're learning. And they're not learning anything about business whatsoever, especially with the
Right.
dynamics of today. Like,
Yeah.
what is the online presence? They have no idea what that really means or does, or the the meta ads, or technologies and AIs and accounting and finance. They don't learn any of this stuff. So before it was sort of mixed up and they learned that they went, but now it's getting so complex on the business side and technology that you have to understand business of law versus practicing of law.
Definitely. Yeah.
And for the business of law, you need a lot of resources, technologies, platforms like Clio, and letting the Clio team expand and grow the functions and capabilities of the system so you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And you can just basically be the great user of it and not have to worry about things.
Exactly, right. And I think you nailed that one. So I'd love to even just hop into kind of like the next topic that I think we're envisioning, right? Like infrastructure, technology, what we're kind of thinking of and what we're seeing, right? So I think, if I can kind of even speak to it a little bit, I think, for the audience, it's really important to understand how technology can actually impact your remote law firm, right? Like it should work the way that you want it to work, whether it's remote, whether it's hybrid, whether it's fully in office. I'm doing like a shameless unplug for Clio right now, right?
Right.
It's important to implement the right tools to ensure that you're saving time, staying secure, and then most importantly, actually providing value to your clients with the best experience possible, right? So like, Hamid, I imagine you know quite a lot about that in particular, right? Given the clients that you serve.
Sure, absolutely. One of the first things that we actually, we are a very dashboard oriented company. Everything we do is dashboard based. So everything we try to implement for the firms is also dashboard based. And the dashboard starts from your leads or clients coming into the system, right? Especially the leads. There's a lot of people now investing a lot of money generating leads. But
Sure.
we see that without the right technology, like the Clio Grow, that takes
Exactly.
the leads, and now a virtual staff who is bilingual works, you have a coverage, not this call center stuff for some random person answering your seven-figure, lead.
Exactly.
So having the system in place, have it configured properly, have trained virtual staff operating it. So now you get a true conversions of your leads to clients.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of a technology and resources that we implement for the firms is have these two pieces in place. Otherwise, stop advertising because you're just throwing your money away. Some people are in this concept of, I'm just paid $20,000, so I should have 20 clients. No, that doesn't happen. It's not like a grocery store that you go buy 4 gallons of milk. It doesn't work like that. You actually, is in this system, it's almost like you have to buy the cow, train the cow, grow a
Exactly.
cow, and nurture it for a while until you can milk it. It's not like you just go buy the milk.
Yeah.
So it's very important to be able to have that technology and that staff and that infrastructure, and the leads that are coming in, it doesn't have a schedule or a time where they're coming. They only come 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It doesn't work like that. So we put a lot of emphasis to setting that up for the firm for the virtual. So the money they're spending gets converted to the cases and the retained clients. So that's the first part of the technology and infrastructure. Then the second thing comes in and the client is retained. You need a system to monitor the progress you're making on the case. So you're not hoarding cases. And that takes technology. Again, Clio comes in, sets up all the bells and whistles, all the reminders, all the tracking and so forth. And once those reports and those flags are created, you need somebody, again, goes back to virtual case manager, who looks at those information and takes action. It's like, boy, this client stopped treating 2 months ago, and we still haven't moved that forward in our Clio. Right? Exactly. And Clio even told us that this person stopped treating 2 months ago, which I need to move into medical record retrievals and a bunch of this other stuff. So now we have that system in place, somebody watching it, taking actions based on those notifications. Then you go to discovery, you go to demand writings, you go to scheduling, collecting medical records, collecting all employment records, all this other stuff. So the system is there to do it. You need to have the people on top of them. So this is a moving train, and the train is not going multiple tracks or get stalled somewhere there. I've seen firms where they have a case sitting there for 4 months with no action. That burns firms' resources just seeing that, number one. And second thing, it becomes a cash flow issue because you're taking these cases in, sitting on them, and not pushing them out fast enough. So you're not getting the cash flow to reinvest back into the firm. Yeah. So there's a lot of those kind of things that is infrastructure and technology that we help firms to understand, implement, and benefit from.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about efficiency, right? And like, especially if we reference back those slides about, 30% now remaining, or rather working in like in office, right? It's only going to get more chaotic, right? More cases, more marketing, more work. Like, you need to have systems and services like yours and systems like Clio where it centralizes everything, keeps everything nice and tight, right? Don't forget, there's also a bevy of other tools, right? You want to be able to connect with clients over Zoom. You want to be able to have like a voice over IP solution, which allows you to track everything, right? So like, we're talking about a bigger picture thing right here. And I think even Hamid, like, I would love to even comment a little bit on cybersecurity. I think it's something that I've heard like just blowing up in particular. Now I hear it more with IT consultants. And so I'll tell like a very funny, I mean, it's not funny, but it sort of is like an interesting story. So I was working with an IT consultant, and they were actually speaking to some of the things that they were seeing from like a cybersecurity perspective, right? And so he was on Zoom doing training about IT infrastructure and all this fun stuff. And he actually went on Zoom to this whole law firm office, and he said, hey, everybody, like, pull up your keyboard, and everybody's passwords were on the bottom of it, right? So like, as you move into this remote first environment, cybersecurity, secure documents, staff that are secure, like you mentioned, right? Hamid, is of the utmost importance, right? Like, you want to make sure that you have something that suits your firm the best, right? It's very easy to implement, that the staff that you're taking on, whether they be virtual or maybe your own staff, are actually able to be supported, right? So like, maybe shameless plug for Clio, right? We obviously work with companies like LegalSoft, and you guys do an incredible work. But one of the things that set us apart, and I think why we have so many clients, is because there's 24-hour-a-day support. We do onboarding for free. We do data migrations for free. And I know that some of our competitors do that now, but believe me, we're the friendly Canadians. When maple syrup runs in our blood, we were the ones doing that to begin with, right? So we're very forward thinking in that way. You want to have technologies and services, right, that are approved by, like, let's say, all of your estate bars, right? All of your regulatory bodies, whether that be from a federal, from a state, from a local level, right? It's really, really
Right.
important. So, I'm curious to get your, I'll shut up. I'm curious to get your take a little bit
No, no,
on.
it's great because that is exactly what I also we're pitching too. Is that when you have some system like a Clio, it makes the virtual operation much more, safer, secure, and in the infrastructure because all your data, all your actions, or the whole process built into one place. So you're not having a bunch of Google Drives and Google Sheets and a whole bunch of different places. Everything is within one system. That's why we use our virtual staff train in the Clio so they can stay safe within a safe environment because the data is secured and safe and the operation is the same. And we're doing a lot of stuff on cybersecurity to be able to monitor our staff. I mean, even the people working in the office, the management doesn't monitor their workstations like the way it should be because they could be, look, the danger, it doesn't get created because they're remote. They could be sitting right in your office with the same problem. They get hacked. They steal information. They leaks information, whatever. So, but since we are operating a lot of remote environment, our focus is to make it safe and secure for everybody to use it.
Yeah, exactly. And
So,
I think like that piece in particular, right? Like always talk to companies like yours, right? I'm saying this kind of to the audience, like talk to experts like Hamid, talk to maybe your own internal IT staff, talk to your own, maybe that you have a third party IT consultant, right? Like I want to say no, and I'm not knocking any other profession, but I think if you're not operating in a safe environment as a law firm, there are real legal repercussions to that, right? Like
right.
leaking of case files, maybe you're supposed to be abiding by HIPAA, right? Like those are really, really important things to consider as your business grows and maybe moves into this remote kind of world, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'd love to hit on, because I think Hamid, you nailed it. I think like the recruitment and management of virtual legal staff, right? I think this is something that your team has, blown out of the water, if I'm being honest, right? So curious to get your take on that.
Right, because when you scale like the way we're doing, you
Yeah.
have to operate it that efficiently. But security, safety, training, coaching, we have a lot of coaching processes that we do with our virtual staff on how to succeed in their position. The kind of a thing that the attorneys don't never have time to do because it is time consuming, it needs a structure, it needs content and so forth. So training the staff, coaching the staff, we even coach attorneys how to operate remotely because it's not their nature that okay, I got these 5 people in 5 different countries, now how do I manage them?
Yeah.
Well, that itself is tricky. So we have two separate groups. We have the CSMs, which is the success managers that works with the actual law firm staff locally, and then we have team leads who work with the virtual staff to make sure this is the right marriage and the right solution. So there's a lot of that goes on too.
It's amazing. And I'm curious to even get the sort of like maybe your view, I mean, like the tools and practices for effective remote management. Obviously, you guys do a lot of work, but I'd love to kind of like peer into your brain a little bit. Like, what should lawyers be doing from that
Sure.
angle?
The time management is very important.
Yeah.
The outcome KPI management is very important. We track those things. We train firms how to create KPIs. Doesn't matter if it's the intake, case manager, paralegal, they all have to have KPIs. Because if you don't have a target, you can't hit the target. So you have to have one to begin with.
Yeah.
So we train them how to do that for their intake staff, for the paralegals, everything. Even the demand writers or document collectors. They all have to have a KPI. So we teach them to do that. They teach them to treat the virtual staff like a local sitting right by them. So don't sort of make it a challenge that these folks are globally positioned and I can't do this, I can't do that. You can do all of it and a lot more. So there's a lot of coaching going on how to manage the firm and how to manage the virtual resources.
Yeah, I love that. And so it's like the same way that we think about things, right? Like you want to be able to have all of these different pieces of the puzzle plug into one. and be kind of like the arms and legs and brain
Right.
of the whole body, right? And that's why, solutions like Clio, other cloud-based products, VoIP solutions, connections with your Outlook and Gmail and everything that you're doing needs to be able to be easily accessed from like a
Right.
remote and cloud-first environment, right? And so
Right.
I think another cool thing that I'd actually love to get your take on, Hamid, obviously just given your background, right? Like I think it's quite unique, right? And I'm not trying to butter your bread too much. But I think like culture becomes a thing that we're thinking about more and more as
Right.
you work in a virtual environment, right? So like I know one of the things that I mean, I'd love to make some comments on it in particular, but I'd love to get some background from you, like having worked at multiple companies, evangelizing this idea of having virtual staff everywhere. Like, how do you actually then build a culture as like a
Sure.
business or as an attorney, to have people like believe in you, right? As a leader.
Yeah, you have to tie them together as a unit because you have this individual KPIs and targets and so forth. Then you
Yeah.
have the team targets and you have entire law firm targets. So whenever we're creating any kind of an incentive program, by the way, incentive program is huge,
Mhm.
especially with virtual staff and on the intake when you're telling them, look, every time you retain me and new clients, you get a $25 bonus, which to them is equal to like $500 bonus.
Right.
Um, uh, so building a culture that aligns everybody's goal of the firm for the success and growth of the firm and not a bunch of individualism where I done my work, I clocked in, I clocked out. And it doesn't matter if it's remote or in the office. They all
Yeah.
need to be integrated together. Even when we have celebration, holiday celebration, birthdays or whatever, we bring all of our virtual staff on the Zoom. You look at our Zoom page and you're gonna see like hundreds of people on the Zoom
Yeah.
celebrating an event. So you got to build those culture and not let this virtual thing have the effect of the other part, which is they're too far to be included. They're not. It's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
we're having this thing right now with a whole bunch of people online and me and you talking. This could be a
Yeah.
community. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it needs to be, separated out. I think we have a bit of a time constraint, so I suggest to moving closer. We're into the process.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Did you want to go into kind of like thinking about client onboarding and communication, Hamid?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, I love that.
So the client onboarding, we provide variety of different candidates. Bring them in, we present them, they get to talk to them and so forth. So they select who they want to have to join their firm. Then we do the onboarding, which is we training them, we're giving all the equipment, technologies, we train them on communication tools, case
Yeah.
management tools, and integrate them into the culture of the practice. Doesn't matter what type of practice or what size of the practice. We emphasize a lot on communication. So being on a Slack, being on Zoom, all of that's a lot of different communication, both with our clients and the VAs with the firm.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that kind of leads us into the next topic that I was thinking of, right? Because I think cost-effective operations are the most important. I think that's what you've kind of built a business around, right? With
Right.
LegalSoft. One of the
Absolutely.
things that we talked about a lot in our legal trends report was this idea of lockup, right? So Hamid, you're a business guy, you definitely know it. I'm not certain if the rest of the audience does, right? But so lockup is actually the period of billable work, which has either not been invoiced or collected on, right? So
Right.
it measures how effectively a law firm actually bills and collects its revenue. It's really quite a crucial component of a healthy business, right? So like minimizing lockup supports a healthy cash flow. You're shortening, those lockup periods. Firms then ensure that they have more cash on hand, maintain more revenue, invest in their future growth, right? I think, if I can point out some really interesting stats in particular. So we did an analysis, right, on like what lockup looks like for a law firm. So
Right.
the median realization lockup, so the amount of revenue unbilled typically at a law firm is 38 days. The median collection, so
Wow.
revenue uncollected lockup is 45 days, right? So think about like not using services like LegalSoft, not using tools like Clio. On average, those calculations actually lead up to lockup revenue of 97 days, right? So like at any given time, a law firm right now in our current age is performing 3 months of work, 3 months worth of work that hasn't done, it hasn't been paid at all,
Right.
right? It's really interesting. Like that's one thing that I wanted to hit on because I know we have a
Sure.
time, right? So I'm curious to get your take on that.
Absolutely. It is because what the information you just provided is part of a dashboard that I was been talking
Mhm.
about through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Everything the dashboard from lead cost to conversion, cost of client acquisitions, average time to sell the case, average time spent on the case, how much billable hours will you actually be able to retain. This is all dashboard oriented, that once you're setting up a dashboard, you can monitor, track, and run your practice as a business. And this is a business dashboard. So you also mentioned about the cost of a staff, which is in the firms is the highest expense of the firm is a staff. So imagine you're going a solo practitioner who wants to add 5 people in their firm. These 5 people with a LegalSoft solution cost the firm less than $10,000 a month for 5 full-time dedicated staff. Now, in California, that costs one person in house,
Yeah.
$10,000. So you get 5 times more value when you're doing this. But this is all part of managing your cost of operation for technology automations with virtual staffing and efficiency tracking of the dashboards to be able to manage your expenses.
Exactly. Like it's so important. It's one of those things, I think, Hamid, you nailed it, right? Like law firms don't think about this because they're not necessarily taught about it in school, right? Whereas like us that come from maybe a bit of a business world, we kind of get the cause and effect of these little things. I think it's something like maybe 4 to 6 hours weekly go unbilled by a
Yes,
law firm, right? So
absolutely.
like, for lack of a better term, and I'm sorry, I might be a little bit garish, but like they're hemorrhaging, cash,
Yeah.
right? Like money's locked up, you're working inefficiently. And so what does that mean? You don't have money to hire new staff, right? Or take on services like LegalSofts. You don't have money to grow your business. And even more so importantly, like you don't have money for work-life balance, right? The majority
Right.
of attorneys are overworked, right? And so like, it's not just all about like make more money, but it's like actually be able to go spend more time with your kids. If you go buy that cottage, or summer home that you wanted, right? To kind of like build a life around just this thing.
Sure.
So it's become all consuming
Yeah.
realistically,
And,
right?
and it's not just the staffing, even when I talk to the firms about their social media presence, which is
Yeah.
a validation of the firm. It's not necessarily just a lead generation. Everybody who wants to do anything with anybody professionally goes and checks out all these platforms. And then I see attorneys are spending their time trying to manage their Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, 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 no. You're wasting a lot of time and money. With LegalSoft, with like $1,000 a month, we manage all of that for the firm, which is saves them tens of thousands of dollars, and not just $1,000 a month to have a full-blown, effective social media presence. So there's a lot of that. I know that you want to move into the Clio and the Clio case management and explain to folks about how the Clio case management works. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that part as well. And just wanted to make sure because I'm running slides, like we're doing okay on time. How are we looking?
We got about 10 minutes, so we
Oh,
have.
okay. Perfect. So yeah, I definitely wanted to speak to the case management side of things. So I think Hamid has done such a good job of kind of speaking to what it looks like to get all of these leads right into the system. And I kind of did a good job of speaking to what a client-centered law firm works like. Remember that kind of like sine wave, right, that I talked about. So I think when it comes to case management, specifically in Clio, I cited a few products. And so I wanted to highlight them in particular, right? So when I think about the way that law firms actually handle intake, and Hamid, feel free to back me up here, but I remember back in my sales days when I would speak to law firms, it was like, this is what the process looked like. There happens, to be somebody sitting at a desk. Hopefully they pick up the phone when a prospective client picks up. If they pick up the phone, then they scribble a whole bunch of information down on a piece of paper. Hopefully that information gets into a computer somewhere, and then an email is fired off with a 50-page document of unfillable PDFs that then someone who isn't, legally oriented or technical in that way is required to fill that out, right? And then maybe they respond to you, maybe they book into your calendar. If they do, they book in like, a 30-minute free, orientation session, and you spend all 30 of those minutes, if not 60, just filling out the information that they could have, right? So
Right.
Clio does a really good job, right? I spoke to LegalSoft's marketing. I talked about our partnership with Google, right? One of the things that we're actually seeing be particularly useful is Clio has 4-1 connections with all of these services and systems, right? Then like a specific intake form that pops up on the law firm side where they can fill out information and digitize it immediately. We can also have leads coming in from marketing systems. And then you'll literally have the way that it's kind of drawn out here, like a Kanban style, like an indicator of where your prospective client is in the life cycle of becoming a client. So that's why when I was talking about initially, it was that pre-retention side of things,
Right.
right? So, I'm curious, Hamid, just a little bit of background there from you, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I was talking about from beginning, to have a workflow process
Yeah.
set up from the beginning within the Clio and Clio Grow, and then having people monitoring it and using it to be able to take action and convert. Obviously, Clio Grow doesn't generate the lead and then converts it. Is a
Mhm.
tool to have a more efficient conversion and have a more cost-effective conversions, because it does the follow-ups, is it does the red flags and everything, and it does the screening. So you just need to have people trained to use it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it, right? And then one of the nice things too is because Clio Grow and Clio Manage are connected, like the moment you actually accept payment, let's say from this prospective client, and you take them on as a case, it actually gets fired off straight into the centralized system,
Right.
right? So like the amazing thing about Manage, and I think what's made us so successful and kind of hits on this topic that we've talked about, is that all of your information is in one very easy to access environment. Like what I'm showing here is the matter level view. So this is what like an attorney or maybe paralegal support staff would be looking at if they're in here, right? So it actually has everything that you need. You can see how much you've billed, how much is outstanding. You're able to send out invoices and bills, right? You can store all of your documents, all of the tasks that are associated, reminders. Like I can go on and on and on, right? But this is kind of the meat and potatoes of what happens after you do everything else. And Hamid, I think you kind of alluded to this, right? Like a lot of your staff, a lot of the virtual staff that you guys provide are actually already trained up on Clio. So like let's
Sure.
say you're already a Clio user, right? Or you're looking to transition your systems, and there are people there that can actually support you as you navigate these changes, right?
Right. Peter, just a time check. We got about 5 minutes. If you wanted to move into the Q&A, it would be great too, but I'll let you finish and then we can move into Q&A.
Yeah, you know what? I'm happy to do that. I'm curious to get the take from the audience, right? I think you and I have been doing a lot of chatting for the time being, so I'm curious to get that right now. So maybe if I can pop up the chat, give me 1 second. From Malika Radford. So how do you manage time zone differences, Hamid?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Great questions. Our staff work exactly your time zone, your schedule. Even if, let's say, I'm in Pacific in California and I still want my VA to start at 6 a.m. because they're in intake, they start at 6 a.m. Or is it 9 a.m. or is it standard time or East Coast? Doesn't make any difference. You tell them the hours and the days. This is
Mhm.
also another challenge where we have a lot of our staff working on the weekend. God help you if you ask your local staff to work over the weekend. Our virtual staff don't mind it at all, and they would work 7 days a week, whatever hours you want them to work at.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think the good thing with cloud-based systems like Clio is that you can access information from anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
And even, funny enough, Clio has applications both for Apple and for Android. So like you can just pull stuff information, like let's say you're in court or you're at the
Sure.
cottage or wherever it might be, right? So
Peter,
super.
if you could also click on the download of the book, because we did
Absolutely.
publish this 2 3 books in the past few
Yeah.
years, and then the audience can definitely get a free copy of it or get it from us or buy it or however they want to do that. But I think it would be very helpful. The first book, which was How to Scale Your Stupid Law Firm, this came from my technology background when I came from Silicon Valley and I came to the law firm, and I was like, oh my God, this operation is 30 years behind times.
Right.
So that's what
Yeah.
triggered that name. But if folks wanted to get a copy of it, I'd be happy to send them the copy. And any other questions?
So I'm not seeing
I
any
see
pop.
one question. It says, what percentage of your users are family law? Family law is definitely in our top 10 law practices because there's a lot of client interactions, documentation collections, and follow-ups. So this is what the virtual staff are great for, is to be able to do all of that you don't want to do. Like, getting information from clients and the other party and putting it together, organizing it, all of that. This is all virtual staff work. I
Yeah,
mean,
and from our end, I would say actually it's one of our most dominant practice areas, right? I think family law in particular benefits not only from the services that LegalSoft provides, but from systems like ours because they're the type of practice area that actually wears so many different hats, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
you're a business owner and a therapist, and you're, dealing with your own sort of situation with interacting with these clients, right? It's a very kind of like not one track focused practice area from what I've seen. So the benefit of Clio is that it operates both like an out of the box system. So it's quite nice for a variety of systems, but it seems to be
right.
tailored a little bit more to family, wills and estates, personal injury, criminal, practice areas like that.
Absolutely. Actually, we have a great comment from one of our clients, Garrett, who's on this call,
Mm.
and he's a user, and he categorized as a power user of both of the companies. And thank you for that comment. And he says, I have to say, what a great modern client journey overview. So thank you for that comment, Garrett, and thank you for using both of our services. And hopefully, we can expand and grow your firm accordingly.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much, Garrett. And I wanted to say, I'll pop Hamid's books back on for everybody that wants maybe even a little bit more information about Clio. Don't worry, I'm not in sales. I won't bug you. Like, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. That's my QR code right there. I'm here to support in any way that I can. The idea is to provide you guys with information. So if you want a legal trends report, you let me know. If you're seeing anything on the website that you need access to, I'm your guy, right? And so I'll pop it back over to Hamid. Hamid, what do you say we wrap things up? What do you think is kind of like the one message we want to send to the audience here?
The one message is basically don't follow what everybody else done 30, 40, 50 years ago. You might want to use it as your legal practice. For as a business practice, you have to be open-minded, get modernized, use all the technology and resources available to you, and be open-minded about things are changing, be in the front of it, be in the front of the AI. We're developing a whole AI infrastructure within LegalSoft because we're getting ahead of it ourselves before other people get in there. We have one more question. Our biggest challenge is finding the right integratable project management tool to rapidly assign and manage the growth list of the client matter task. And well, Clio really does that. And we have people who are actually working on Clio and helping to build those tools. And one of the issues with the people using tools like Clio is that they don't get the complete understanding and capabilities of the system. And they just need to dig more and they contact Clio to show them and tell them about your challenges so they can help you. And they will also suggest to you what other tools that can be integrated with Clio to make a more complete solution. But we haven't seen that with our set of clients that there was actually things that was not possible to do with the Clio and the Clio integrations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Hamid. And I would say Garrett, Garrett, like I said, email me. That's my direct email right there.
Yeah.
I would put my phone number, but I know I'm going to get like 800 phone calls. So email me directly. Honestly, I'm here to help. I'm happy to hop on Zoom or call or whatever you need to get you sorted with the right people. It's my job to do so, and it's my pleasure to do so.
Wonderful. It was great speaking with you, Pierre. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, you can reach out to the LegalSoft phone number, email, website, however you want, to get more information and consult with our practice growth specialist and see how they can help you or at least recommend to you what you need to do to scale your law practice.
Exactly. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you, Hamid.
Thank you.